Just make sure everyone gives
Oh,
verbal.
sorry. Yeah, is everyone okay if we record this round?
Sure.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, sounds good.
Right. Okay. Oh, should we introduce ourselves or say pronouns or anything? If everyone's okay with it, like up to you guys.
Yeah,
if,
sounds great.
if you guys could do like name pronouns, and then speaking order. Okay.
Oh, Elisandra Moulistitas, whatever pronouns your heart desires. I'm going to be the leader of opposition.
Gursimar, Kaur, she, her pronouns. I will be the second speaker.
My name is Ben Squires. My pronouns are he, him. I'm going to be speaking first and third for side government.
I'm Eloise Turner. I'll be speaking second for Gov. Oh, my pronouns are she, her.
Awesome. Then, as long as everyone is ready, I guess PM, go for it.
Good morning, judges. My name is Ben Squires. I am the first speaker on side government, standing strongly for the motion at hand today that this House, as the National Football League, would prioritize spreading American football over the globe over increasing viewership in the United States. I'm going to use this speech to go over the definitions and framework for this debate and then get into my team's three major contentions. So we're going to be defining this House today as the topic describes as the NFL, or the National Football League within the United States. We're defining football as the sport which is commonly thought of as the most popular sport in the United States. Also called gridiron. I think we all know what football is. We're defining U.S. viewership as attempting to increase the number of viewers within the United States, the number of viewers of the NFL within the United States, and we're defining international viewership as similarly trying to increase the number of international viewers of games in the that are run by as a part of the NFL. The framework we're going to be using for today's debate is we're describing the you should win based on net benefits to this House or the NFL. So as the National Football League, right, we care about the benefits to our league and us. So we're going to be basically framing this debate based on what creates the most net benefits to this House, whether that is trying to advertise to an international audience versus trying to increase viewership within the United States. So, getting into my team's first contention about increased viewership and money. Spreading American football over the globe would increase viewership significantly, more than by attempting to increase viewership within the United States, for the simple reason that American football is already incredibly popular within the United States. Right? We as the NFL have already been trying to spread football within the United States with as much force as possible. Think about all the football ads, all the bars you walk into, and there's football playing on the TV. Right? Football is already such a massive, prominent part of American culture, and it's simply just because it has been being spread so much, there's not really that much more we can do. It is already incredibly popular within the United States. Thus we don't need to be pushing football anymore within the US. Think about it this way. Over 100 million Americans watch the Super Bowl. Think about how massive of a number that is. 100 million. Because football has already been pushed so much, it would be foolish to attempt to put more effort into it. So what is the alternative? Trying to increase viewership across the globe. Internationally, American football is simply just not that watched, and it's not that well known. By spreading its influence across the globe, the NFL is approaching a new world where they could potentially get a significantly greater amount of viewership. It's not like people internationally don't like sports. The Soccer World Cup is, I think, the most watched sporting event in the world. But the reason that football is not popular internationally is because it has not been marketed to an international audience yet. So by doing this, we're going to be increasing our viewership and exposing more people to football, which would result in essentially more money for this House or the NFL, which would increase the net benefits to this House, which would also make it so that the league could put more resources towards making itself better, making itself more profitable. And so the impacts of this are really, we're going to be getting more money because we're going to be marketing to an international audience. We're going to be getting more viewership, which is going to spread the influence of football, and we're going to basically use the extra money and extra attention that we as the NFL get in order to make the league better, to work on issues in the league and potentially increase viewership that way by making our advertising better, by making our games potentially better if we're getting better players because we have more money. Right? There's so many benefits that can come along with this. So our C2 here is about how having advertising to an international audience would potentially increase the number of potential players within the NFL. So let me explain. Essentially, as the NFL is starting to spread to a more international audience, you're going to have a greater number of people being from an international audience being interested in football and being interested in playing football. So when you have more people from across the globe playing football, it means that the number of high school football players, the number of middle school, high school football players is going to be greater. And so what that means is that the NFL is going to have a greater pool to draw from when they are attempting to draft players. So, because they have a greater pool to draw from, that means that in general, the players are going to be of a higher quality, which is going to increase the quality of the league in general, which would then increase viewership, increase money, all of the things that this house, as the NFL does care about. The NFL is a massive industry who does have the financial position to expand not only their viewership, but their league as a whole. This means that we could potentially increase the number of potential football players that are in the league, period, which would be a really, really good thing. It's many, American kids' dream, particularly in lower income households, to be part of the NFL. Today, more than half of NFL football players come from backgrounds in poverty or lower income backgrounds, and football was their way out of a really bad situation. By expanding the NFL's reach and thus increasing the number of slots available to players in college, we as the NFL would be giving more children in poverty or coming from low-income households a way out. And a chance to, change the economic situation of themselves, their families, their communities, and, just make their lives better. Why are we only, by spreading the influence of football and the influence of the NFL across the globe, you are potentially giving more people a chance to change their lives for the better. So what does this impact out to? Weigh this point more heavily, because these people have already not been given the greatest chances to improve their quality of lives, and so we think that you should be weighing this more than other points, Judge, because we are giving these people a chance to improve the quality of their lives. Also weigh this both on a long and short term, because poverty is cyclical, meaning that if the NFL can help more people get out of poverty, that means that they're gonna help their families and their kids, which is gonna be really good. Also, we can extend this opportunity to people in poverty globally, having a bigger impact on world economies and making smaller countries potentially a better place. Getting into our C3, we're talking about immigrants who play football. So this is really important, Judge. Not all people who play in the NFL are American or come from America. There are immigrants and people of other nationalities as well. There's a lot of Canadians. I think there's a lot of Australians. They deserve to be recognized, or at least have the opportunity to get some appreciation from their own people in their own home country. And it wouldn't be fair them to deny them that opportunity. Not only would it help their mental health, because they could have the support of their country, or at least some people in their country behind them, but it would also improve their quality of play to know that they have such support and that they're representing themselves to their home.
You know why?
It's protected time. As the NFL, this is a really good thing, both for them and us, because it increases the happiness of our players, which we want, but it also increases the quality of their play in general for those players, which obviously would improve the quality of our league. So going to my grace period here, again, we're going to be weighing this debate based on net benefits to this house. We've shown how increasing viewership globally is going to get the NFL more money, more viewership, and is going to help the lives of people across the world. Thank you for these reasons, vote government.
All right, awesome. All right, starting my time now. Going over top of case, we agree with everything except the weighing mechanism. So they say net benefits to this house, the NFL. Okay, so we think that it should be net benefits to everyone, because the NFL is made up of players. Would you say the USFG should pass a policy and say benefits to the US government instead of the people who are impacted by the decision? We think that it is a much more fair and all-encompassing weighing mechanism to actually take into account the quality of life. And you see that even in their contentions, they talk about quality of life to players, so they're not even falling into their own weighing mechanism either. Okay, starting on the opposition case. Our first contention is interest. Subpoint A, Americans take their football super seriously. It's a very strong form of patriotism in the status quo, right? There's a reason that American football is American football. You don't see sports called like Lithuanian badminton, right? We say that it's like literally a symbol of American patriotism. And like the Football League has existed for 150 years. People are aware of American football. They have seen the American high school movies that romanticize high school football games like globally. We literally live in a global age where if something is to spread globally, it easily can through the internet. But with football, having been around for incredibly long, even after seeing it in the Hollywood movies, the rest of the world didn't catch on to it signifying a lack of global interest. We did not see an increase in interest or playing or partaking in American football, interestingly enough. And if this is spreading, this is spreading of American football had plenty full of chance to spread across the globe, but it didn't. And in the status quo, it is not spreading, then the probability of the Gov plan working out is very slim. Our subpoint B is that this would most likely be done through marketing, because like how else would they be spreading American football to international countries? This will most likely feel like propaganda to countries who don't trust the United States, a lot of countries. Our subpoint B is that of propaganda. How would we be implementing this resolution? How are we spreading American football? Using marketing. Now imagine China starts marketing something to the US that is kind of really patriotic to the Chinese, the way American football is to Americans. We would lose our minds calling China out because we wouldn't want another country to come here marketing their patriotic symbols. It would feel very much like propaganda. If other countries start feeling like the US is being too nosy and spreading American propaganda, then that only bitters the US diplomatic relations. Subpoint B. Oh, if you have POIs, ask them verbally. Subpoint B. It would upset Americans. This is a symbol of patriotism. To say it's not is ignorant. Americans aren't like super accepting of other cultures, nor would they be super happy about the global spread of American football. We say that Americans like are so insane about their football. They even said it themselves. 100 million Americans watch the Super Bowl. Judges, that's a third of the country, right? We say that Americans are super passionate about football, and Americans are also not super passionate about like other countries. Now, our second contention is on safety. Subpoint A. Other countries generally just play safer sports. We think that a game that causes severe brain damage and we're like all cool with it is super American. Let's look at this empirically. Like games people play internationally are sports like soccer, basketball, badminton, tennis, lacrosse, and more. None of these games have proven health risks even close, other than rugby, which is literally American football without a helmet, right? So these games cause things such as dementia, Parkinson's, and more. When we look at specifically football and rugby, we think that spreading this game that is generally super dangerous to the globe is a bad idea. We can't look up evidence, but I'm sure you've heard about the studies concerning football players over 40 and significant brain damage. Subpoint B, at least a portion of people playing the game would increase. We see that other sports at least somewhat mimic the feeling you get from playing football. I felt some intense adrenaline rushes while playing soccer. But although some people may mistrust the random marketing coming from the US to get them to play football, some would start playing, and that is essentially more people prone to all of these terrible diseases and injuries. You always have a somewhat risk of being injured in a game. However, none of these risks are even comparable to that of football. And then they literally say themselves, more high school students like playing football. Yeah, more children getting brain damage. Our third contention is about better conditions for American athletes. Subpoint A, Americans are already playing football and won't stop. Football is here to stay, that is a fact. Football being globally played, however, is not. If we increase viewership in the United States, that means more revenue and more compensation for these players who are putting their safety at risk for the love of the game. Subpoint B, a large population of the league are minorities. Minorities are disproportionately pushed into generational poverty here in the United States. Football and sports in general is one of the ways in which you can make it out of a bad situation, pay off your mom's house, get your family the resources they need to survive, that the government is insufficient in providing. When we invest into providing more revenue nationally for American football, we better conditions for people in America for these athletes. I'm going to touch on their case and respond to like their direct clash to this. Now, moving on to the Gov case. So the first contention they have is increased viewership because like it's already popular in the US. They say that it's so popular in the US, so like we can't possibly spread it more. However, it is popular in the US, and the way that we are spreading it in the US is working. They literally say this. They're like, a third of the entire country watches the Super Bowl, right? So we see that like they are very successfully able to spread this throughout the country. And I'm gonna explain why that's significantly
You know why?
better than over the world. Yes.
As you say that what we're doing is already working right now, why do you believe that we need to increase the amount of
I'm gonna
spending?
touch on why it's worse to do it globally. I already have a little bit, but I'll answer that. So they say that like it's not internationally popular because it's not been marketing. American football is so well known. The US is a hegemonic power. People have seen football movies, right? People do like sports. Like that sport just doesn't need to be football, right? Like they say like, oh, people like sports. Yeah, people like sports. Each country has like their own national sport. So their impacts are more viewership, like okay, and more funding for the NFL, right? So the funding would go to the globe, though, right? Like the money is being spread, paying athletes worldwide. It's not like to improve the league. This is money that is being made to be able to like pay the athletes. It's not just gonna like make the league better. Their second contention is number of players in football increases. Turn number of football players increases. They specifically highlight high school students, judges, children, more children playing a game worldwide that causes them brain damage. Then they say like so many people come out of poverty and football takes them out of it. Other countries have sports that are actually developed, actually have active revenue that can get them out of poverty better than like a brand new Lithuanian NFL league, right? We say that it is so much better to not encourage like children to get brain damage for a league that is not well developed, right? We tell you that because football is so well developed here and other sports are so well developed in other countries, like, I mean, if you go to Cuba, what is the biggest like sport there? Baseball, right? We say that like Cubans don't need to like have Americans marketing to them being like, yo, play this game that's going to give you Parkinson's. Like, we don't think that that's necessary. No, thank you. Oh, shoot. Okay. We don't think that that's necessary, right? Because we tell you that there are safer, more developed games that other countries can get out of poverty with, other countries can play for that aren't like the NFL, right? Their third contention is like not all people in the NFL are American. We have a couple responses. The first one is that if you're Australian, like someone in Australia can watch you play in the US, right? These are like very you can access NFL videos, NFL games, right? The second response is that like people who immigrate and then join the NFL, that is really great. But we think that they immigrated here because football is so popular here. There's capital here and it is a developed sport. We tell you that that's not going to happen when the NFL tries to like spread it globally and kind of like half-assing like football leagues in every single country of the world, right? We don't think that's going to work. We think it's going to be funding or viewership. We think that there are better options for people in poverty than to play football. So let's just do some weighing and some world-to-world comparison, right? So what do we see in the opposition world? We see that we are increasing the revenue for the football players in the place where there's already capital, where there's already athletic success, where there's already a large viewership pool, right? We say that it's going to be so much better for someone to like either immigrate here and join the American Football League here or stay in their country and then play the game that has capital over there. And we do not see this in the Gov world where we're literally half-assing football leagues in like every single country of the world. For all those reasons, I'm so proud to negate. Thank you.
Okay, amazing. Again, I prefer verbal POIs. Just a quick off-time roadmap, nothing crazy. I'm just gonna do definitions debate and then I'm gonna go their side, our side, which is very generic. Okay. Time will start on my first word. In terms of the definitions debate, they talk about the US federal government and how thus, because the resolution mentions the US federal government, that we shouldn't weigh it on net benefits to the NFL. But I think they misunderstood the resolution because the resolution never mentions once the US federal government. Thus, it makes sense that we would weigh on net benefits to the House. Like they never mention the US federal government. The only house, the only actor that's mentioned is the NFL. Thus, it makes logical sense to weigh on net benefits to the NFL, right? That makes logical sense. I think that clears up the definitions debate. Now to their side of the flow. First contention, interest, they talk about how it's a symbol of American patriotism and how it would be seen as spreading American propaganda. They also talk about how American football is already watched in a lot of other countries and why haven't we seen an increase? First of all, we have seen an increase even just based on like bootleg Instagram reels or TikToks of moments in American football games. We have seen an increase in global viewership in terms of those types of not even marketing skills. But again, there's a crucial distinction here to be made between implementing a new broadcast channel in a different country and entrusting random citizens to film things on their phone and post it on TikTok or YouTube. That's crucially different. And it's unreasonable to say that because of the not even marketing tactics that random citizens are using to propagate American football, that we should have seen a dramatic increase in global viewership because of that. Given the low level of effort that takes, actually no effort from the NFL itself to do the kind of marketing that they claim that we already have in the status quo, given that is such a low level effort, and we've already seen an increase in global viewership, it can be reasonably assumed that with an actual, tangible, logical marketing campaign, that viewership would drastically increase, as we say it does on our side of the flow. They also say that it's going to be seen as propaganda in like countries that have a rocky relationship with the US, but also the US isn't going to put a broadcast channel, like the NFL is intelligent as a marketing entity, right? It's not going to put it in a country that we have a really rocky relationship with. It's going to target demographics. Sure, quickly, sorry.
Yeah, what does global mean?
It means, well, global doesn't mean every single country in the world. It means strategic marketing to specific countries, right? Like if you say that Instagram is global, right? That doesn't mean that it's in every single country equally. Like it doesn't mean that we have to, put one broadcast channel in every single country in the world. It means that it's strategic. Also, the NFL just logically is, as I said, a strategic marketing entity. They're going to recognize where their target demographic should be, right? Again, also, to their propaganda argument, we watch other countries' sports and we don't see it as propaganda. That doesn't make logical sense that watching someone's sports, or as you said, watching someone else's movies is going to be seen as propaganda. They talk about how so many other countries watch American movies. Then why isn't that seen as propaganda, right? We live in a global modern society, not any part of any other people's culture is seen as propaganda, shoving it in your face. That's not logical. That doesn't make sense. Okay, they talk about also brain damage. Then they talk about how a lot of other sports, or all other sports, are safer than football, right? Even soccer, you mentioned, people get concussions and brain damage all the time. And secondly, so many other sports are more dangerous than football. Water polo, or not more dangerous, but at least as dangerous, right? Water polo, boxing, things like contact sports, martial arts, taekwondo, karate, everything like that. Danger isn't specific to football, but what is specific from football is the high percentage of people who came from poverty and are now making millions of dollars. So if you weigh the impact, and if they weigh the impact in their head that they've come from a lower income background, they understand the statistics and the danger that comes with football. But if you weigh that against all the impacts of poverty and all the impacts of the background that they came from, they made that conscious choice for themselves that this is going to be a smart decision for me, right? And it's not specific to football again. Then they talk about how football increasing viewership means more compensation. I don't really understand their third contention. I think that a lot of their points there go to our side of the flow. They said that football increasing, if this is how I understood it, they said football increasing viewership means that there's more compensation for the players. That's what we're saying. They say that the large population are minorities. Sure.
Yeah, so do you think that the money that is going to be made from extra viewership is just going to go back to, like,
yes,
it's going to be spread through the globe?
What's going to happen is if we increase viewership, then the marketing people who are putting ads on the NFL broadcasting channels are going to have to pay more money for those ads, right? Like that's how marketing works through ads. Is the more people who are watching something, the more it costs to put an ad on that channel, and that money from that ad is what's going to go to the NFL players, right? That's what's going to increase their salary. It's basic like expansion policies. It's not going to be, also the NFL is not going to be draining their pockets so that they can't pay their players anymore. It's investing intelligently so that viewership goes up and then ads have to pay us more, right? Now onto our side of the flow. Contention one. Okay, we basically say that logically spreading American football over the globe would increase viewership because we've already saturated the US market, right? They say that American football is already popular, which means that we should continue to beat a dead horse and expand here. We say, as I just stated, we've saturated the market. Millions and millions of people watch football. The Super Bowl is the most watched American sporting event every single year, right? There cannot possibly be more that we can do within the American market. As my opponent stated, it's such a fundamental part of American culture. We've done it. We've succeeded in the American market. We don't need to continue to beat a dead horse and waste our money spending on people who are already invested in the sport. That's not necessary. What is necessary is reaching out to a new demographic, reaching out to a new market, knowing, as my opponent said, that they have already been susceptible a little bit to the Instagram reels, to the TikToks, to the low-level marketing strategies that everyday citizens have. That's not even from the NFL, right? So then the impacts of more money for the league, more viewership for the league, and just making the league better overall by increasing the number and thus quality of the players who are trying to go into the league, that's all net benefits to us, to the House, to the House. Okay, contention two increases the number of potential players. Again, this was specifically to our structural violence argument and to the way that a lot of the players who are in the NFL have come from backgrounds of poverty and backgrounds of lower income. And so by giving them this economic, paying them millions of dollars a year, that's going to be really good cyclically and for the short term, right? They try to turn this, say that more players playing in the NFL means more players who are susceptible to brain damage. And I don't think that they understood this argument. So first they try to turn it saying that more people playing is going to lead to more brain damage. Again, I've already gone over this, how the players clearly have accepted that if they can either choose between, not going into this career, not, forfeiting this millions and millions of dollars, or having some concussions like many other sports have. I think how they interpreted this was that we're going to make leagues in every single country that we're broadcasting. That's simply not the case. What we are saying is that if we increase the viewership of the NFL, logically, the NFL is going to expand within America because America is still going to be the heart of American football. Even as my opponent said, America has such a football culture, it's still going to be mainly based here. What we are saying is that within America, because so many more people internationally are watching it, they're going to have the revenue to expand here, which means that they're going to be offering people more opportunities here. It's not saying, I think they mentioned Lithuania. It's not saying put up a NFL within Lithuania. It's saying expand here, where football is an established sport. I don't think that they understood this contention. Yeah, that's okay. So that flows through again, weigh this really heavily because not only is it cyclical, but it also goes to structural violence, meaning that these people who have been in poverty in the past need to be weighed more because they haven't been listened to before. Then they had absolutely no response to our third contention about how immigrants who play in the NFL don't have the support from their home countries because we're not marketing to them. They had no response to this at all. Again, these benefits are really good for us because as an NFL player, if you know that your home country is watching you, if you know your home country is cheering you on because they have marketed to them, because they're invested in your sport and they're invested in your career, right? That's going to make you really boosted and motivated. It's going to make you a better player. So it's going to improve the mental health of the players. And it's also going to improve their quality of play, right? Because they're going to be happier, they're going to be more driven. That's really good for us. So again, just to weigh quickly, we have on our side of the flow, more money, more viewership, increasing the quality of the league. We have, again, increasing the mental health of the players. But most importantly, we have the fact that if we expand, because we have marketed globally, we can lift more people out of extreme poverty and give them multi-million-dollar careers over the course of their life. That's really important. Thank you.
Alright, hello everyone, my name is Gursimar Kaur. I will be the second speaker from opposition. Off-time roadmap, I will start off on the opposition side of the flow and then I'll move into the world. 1 second. Okay, I will start my time now. Okay, on the opposition side of the case, I'll just take it from the top of case. Our first contention was about interest. To this, the refutation that we get is that, we already have viewership and interest increasing because from just small effort reels and TikTok marketing. I'm gonna dive into this and see what they're saying. They're saying that just because there's marketing like on TikTok and reels, like we have reels that are being made, people already have interest in this game of American football. First of all, there's like no warranting to this. Like how are we to know when we can't do any research that there is actually any sort of link between like, oh, people are seeing these reels? Because reels and TikTok videos are all like algorithm written, so people only watch what they're interested in. So who's to say that this American football reels are actually being watched by people in the other countries, and let alone increasing viewership of American football in other countries, right? It's a baseless argument. And the other problem is that if this were to be happening, then why don't we see people playing American football in other countries? Because when people start seeing something that they're idolizing, like we give you the example of American Hollywood movies that idolize football players or high school football players in specific, like High School Musical, etc., etc., right? People have seen those movies. American football has been around for 150 years. For people to be viewing a game, they need to be interested in the game and they need to be playing in the game so they understand the game, right? People in other countries don't view the game because they don't play the game. It's not their game, right? So the government is entirely just wrapping this thing up and ignoring the fact that people in other countries don't play American football. Why would they even, like, to start having people get drafted from other countries, they first need to establish this game in other countries so that there's like people practicing and people learning how to play the game, because they don't already have this, right? In the status quo, other countries have no interest in American football, even though they've seen it idolized in Hollywood. And we give you a good reason for this. Why is it not already implemented in other countries? Well, first of all, we tell you it's a patriotic symbol, and they completely just they don't give us any real refutation about why other countries won't like the patriotic symbol spreading, except they just say, oh, we have other sports. that we have sports from other countries that we play. We don't see it as a propaganda symbol. Well, here's the thing: other sports like badminton don't have a country's name in it. It's not Chinese badminton or Lithuanian badminton or Brazilian soccer that we're playing. We're just playing those games as is. Versus American football is very heavily American. They said it themselves. 100 million people. I can't take anything right now. 100 million Americans watched the recent NFL NFL game, right? If that is the case, then clearly Americans are super, super, super into this sport, right? And it carries the name American in it, right? American football. That is clearly very heavily related to America. And that is why we make this propaganda point, because if someone comes here and they start talking like, oh, here's American football, it's super cool, we really love it, so you should really love it so that we can get more viewership. That sounds insane. Anyone in their right mind would catch that this sounds insane, like another country coming here to make profit from their sort of own propaganda. The other point that they make is like, oh, NFL will strategize and target which countries. Well, the resolution says global. It says the word globe in it, and globe doesn't mean like, oh, I'm gonna pick a cherry pick, like Canada will be in it, New Zealand will be in it, Australia will be in it, and that's how we're going global. Global technically means like most of the countries in the world, if not all. Like if there's 196 countries, maybe you're implementing it in at least 100 countries, right? You can't just cherry pick like, oh, we have some Canadian players and we think that they need recognition, so we're going to put this in Canada and we're going to call that global. That's not how this works, right? And so completely ignore this point about like, oh, we're going to strategize, the NFL will strategize and target which countries, right?
Yeah.
And again, they keep bringing up this point about Instagram, and Instagram isn't even in every country equally. So first of all, Instagram is in every country. Like every country right now is connected to there's not one country besides perhaps North Korea that does not have access to like some basic stuff like Instagram, right? Maybe China because they have like nationalized media, right? But technically if you're in a country that's like has internet, you have access to Instagram. That's not how this is working. Ignore all that point. Like, and even if like, and they're telling you like every country has access to these reels technically, right, that they're bringing out. They're like, oh, a small effort marketing gave us so much increased viewership. Imagine if we make this bigger marketing. That I'm telling you that that's not how this is working, because to have viewership you need to have people interested in the sport. I already established that that's not the status quo. It's not been the case for the past 150 years. There's no like interest in other people. Like people are not watching High School Musical and going, whoa, that guy's really cool, I want to be like him, let's start up an American football in my high school. That's not how it works. Why doesn't it work this way? Because they have sports in their own countries. Soccer is really popular worldwide, right? No one's coming here to America to force a soccer on us. Like we can be happy with our baseball and American football games instead of like specifically being forced into soccer, right? So that like reciprocates. Like we shouldn't go around expecting. Sorry.
POI.
No, not right now. We shouldn't be expecting people to come in and just like accept American football propaganda. And then also they're talking about like revenue and profits. Actually, I'm just gonna move on to the government flow because they mention it in their on their side of the flow as well. So from the top, they also so they bring up a refutation to our refutation on the top of case about the weighing mechanism. And what seems to have happened is that they don't understand what we actually said. My partner didn't say that there's USFG mentioned in the resolution. That's not what we said. We gave you an example like, oh, if there were to be USFG mentioned in a resolution, typically the round will not be weighed on benefits to United States federal government. It typically is usually weighed on just net benefits to the people, right? So we're saying that it's pretty biased to weigh this round on NFL, which is this house, instead of weighing it on the people who are going over the globe, which is what's mentioned in the resolution. That's what we're saying, and they don't refute this. So we believe that this weighing mechanism should go through. It just is more inclusive instead of being biased towards like this company trying to make money. On their first point about increased viewership, they're talking about how like the US market is completely saturated and you're beating a dead horse, and to make more money we need to like spread outside, right? Well, first of all, this idea, we need to reflect on where this idea that we constantly need to keep making more money even when 100 million people are already watching this sport comes from, right? Okay, first of all, if 100 million people are watching, NFL really wants to focus on increasing viewership, okay, make it 150 next time. Okay, it's not like there's like 300 million people, entire population of the US is watching football. There's still space for more people in America to be interested in the football games in America, because this is American football. It's very specific to America, right? And then also, it's very much American culture, and if it's something that Americans are passionate about, let them be passionate about it and just stay in the American market. That does no harm to NFL. You're still making a lot of money. Just make your games better, make them well marketable in America, and that's probably a better worth for NFL than trying to first going into these developing countries and claiming, oh, we're going to take you out of poverty. You're not going to take people out of poverty if you pick one player from like a country of Gambia to play in the NFL draft, and they say like, oh, we're not making multiple drafts in each of these countries, so you're going to be picking like maybe one player from a country. That's not going to raise or uplift the entire country of Gambia out of poverty. That's like an entirely just out there, stretched out point that they make. Their entire contention about like just having people are going to get out of poverty should be ignored, because that's just not how poverty is working. This is systematic poverty. You can't just bring NFL to countries and take them out of poverty. Increasing viewership means NFL gets the profits, and you really think that a private corporation like NFL is trying to help people with that money? No, they want that money for themselves, and this is a very capitalistic and flawed way of looking at things. I'm going to end my speech now. Thank you very much.
All right, awesome. Okay, getting my timer set up. Okay. My partner and I continue to be so proud to negate the resolution above. Our first main voter issue is going to be that of safety. The first point under this is health issues, right? Judges, I'd like to point out that the only response that the government gives is other sports are dangerous too. Judges, please just like gut check everything we have said, because everybody in this room knows that football is the most dangerous sport. Everyone in here knows football causes the most brain damage, the most dementia, the most Parkinson's, and we say that it is incredibly American that we're just like super chill with this, right? So we say that spreading it globally is one, like it's just gonna make more people play the sport, which is going to lead to more kids getting brain damage by the time that they're like 30, right? But this is a huge impact, because like football is here to stay in America. Football is not going anywhere. Football has been around for 200 years, right? We like to bring this up because they like to say like, oh, like people don't know about it because we don't market it well. Football is literally 150 years old. Like that has so much time. It has had so much time to catch on like globally. But we say that more people playing is more people prone to these health issues. That's a huge impact. Now, our second point under this point of safety is about propaganda, and this is like benefits to diplomatic relations, right? So we tell you a couple things that are just like very poorly responded. They're kind of just like, oh, like how would that be propaganda when other sports are global? They literally say multiple times, they concede multiple times that American football is a symbol of patriotism. It has the word American before it. This is propaganda. This is a symbol of patriotism that you were trying to spread globally, and they don't actually contest that. They don't contest. They simply say like, "Oh, other sports exist. That's not propaganda." Okay, other sports don't have the word American before them, right? We say that this is incredibly unique to America, right? We tell you that this is very bad, that it's going to cause more mistrust, and also that it just like looks bad for us, right? Like, what are we doing? Moving on to our second voter issue is benefits to players. So they say that like these players worldwide will get like these $1 million salaries and be pushed out of poverty. So like they're in a couple they're in a bit of a sticky situation here for a couple of reasons, right? So they first say that they're gonna like market it globally, and then that's gonna make more players. But then they say that they're not gonna put like leagues in other countries. Essentially, they're gonna like bring players from other countries to the U.S. where the capital. I don't know. It doesn't make sense. It's also not gonna work. They can't access their impacts if this is true. Like if this is true, they're in a double bind, because either they are bringing players here and they are cherry picking like one or two football players from Africa, one or two from Europe, like that does not work. Or they are building leagues in countries where there isn't any capital, where these players won't be getting $1 million salaries because they're not going to get viewers because they don't play the game, right? Football, American football has 100 million viewers, a third of the U.S. population, because we play it here and have played it here for 150 years. That's not going to happen if you put leagues in other countries. So in either scenario, the gov just cannot access their impacts. We also tell you that this is we tell you that they don't have viewership globally, and essentially why we think that this uniquely goes to the opposition side is because if we actually clearly our efforts to increase viewership and have viewership have been incredibly successful, and government concedes this. So we think that if we continue to push this, we continue to push American football in the United States, that we are going to have more people playing American football in the US, more people watching, which is going to be more money for the NFL to give to the players that are here where the capital is. That is more money for the minorities in the US, because we cannot help the minorities globally. And we have literally proven why continuously. For all those reasons, we're so proud to negate.
There is one key element of this round that my opponents do not seem to understand, that players' salaries are based off of the viewership that their games produce. By increasing the viewership of the NFL, we are increasing the quality of life for all players. On the frame quickly, we interpret their weighing mechanism and our weighing mechanism as benefits to everyone involved with the NFL, as we stated in our first speech, which would include the league, players, and viewers. And we're going to show you today why we win and why we are the better side for every single one of these stakeholders. So, getting into the major points of clash, we tell you that spreading NFL viewership globally will increase revenue and football's popularity. They tell us that football is already popular within the United States, which means that American football is continuing to grow within the United States regardless of whether or not we increase viewership. They have literally admitted to you, judges, that football is growing in the US without increasing advertising nationally. It's stayed the same for a large amount of time. So they say time and time again how deeply rooted it is in American culture, which means that we can increase viewership internationally while still increasing nationally while still increasing global viewership. They tell you that the world has been exposed to football through American media, but many international people don't view these movies because they're a deep part of American culture, not international culture, and haven't been exposed to a similar level of a similar level of advertisements and a similar level of exposure to football. I don't want to beat a dead horse here, Judge, but basically football is already thriving in America. There's no reason it shouldn't be spread globally because it will get more viewership. Second point of clash, we say that spreading viewership internationally will increase the number of NFL players within the United States. They respond to this by saying that this is bad because it will increase the number of people playing in other countries with head injuries, and it will create more leagues that other countries won't be more interested in. And they give you this example of Cuba. So I have a lot of responses here because they have literally admitted that more people will be playing football here, right, with their reputation, which is indisputably good for the NFL. It's good for the league, it's good for the viewers because because it becomes more competitive, and it's good for the players because they are able to pull themselves out of poverty. We also never said that we would create more leagues, but if these leagues develop naturally as the result of global football viewership, then that is good for the NFL because there are going to be more players within the NFL. Because there's going to be more players within the NFL. There's a lot of NFL players that come from countries outside of the United States. I think like Nigeria, Canada, Australia, I think we have Jamaica, England, right? They use the example of British soccer, but there are literally British American football players. What does that tell you about their case? They don't they give you this example of like soccer is a profoundly British sport, but then there are literally British people who are playing American football. What does that tell you about the level what does that tell you about the potential that football has to be a great international sport? They also give you this example of baseball as a sport which is in Cuba, yet Cuban baseball players almost exclusively have the goal of coming and playing the national pastime of the United States within the United States.
These responses to Cuba are like completely new. I literally made this example in my first speech. It was an example that I made, and I'm the leader of opposition. Yeah. You can't respond to it now.
It's an example that you gave, which I believe
you can't
is not a new argument.
Okay.
I'm responding to a piece of evidence, not an argument. There's no new refutations. You're allowed to discourse on evidence.
All right, we will take it under consideration when we're judging.
So I have about 3 minutes left now.
Sounds good.
Okay, let me just. Okay, I'm starting my clock with 3 minutes left. So baseball is a great example of a uniquely American sport, which has a massive international audience. There's no reason why football can't be the same. It's called the national pastime for a reason. They also give you this point about how propaganda, and we say that we live in a global world when there is a crucially missed difference between spreading one's culture and one's propaganda. To be clear, propaganda would be the NFL globally asserting that American football is the best sport in the world or something like that, which it's obviously not. Trying to share it as
Hello, this response to propaganda is completely new. You did not say it. I made this point in my first speech.
pausing my time. Yeah, this has been an ongoing debate throughout the entire round about
It's
propaganda.
not a debate because I made the argument and you're responding to it right now.
I think
Yeah.
I responded to your argument in my rebuttal speech saying that like American culture isn't necessarily propaganda.
Yeah, I think that's been a theme throughout the
I have
debate.
that on my flow at least, but judge's discretion.
Judge's discretion. Yeah.
Under consideration.
Starting my time with 2 minutes and 30 seconds left. It's absolutely not trying to like share, as they said, a deep part of American identity with other countries. If we take their definition of propaganda, they can't do things like that, like eat at Thai restaurants or something, because globalization of foreign food is therefore propaganda. That's basically saying that globalization is bad. We can't interact with the world around us. As we said in our rebuttal, this doesn't make logical sense. Further, they contradict themselves when they assert that there are so many people that watch movies with American football, but for some reason they hate to watch like the real thing. Cancel all these things that they tell you about propaganda out. What is the difference between American movies, which according to them are widely watched, and American football? Right? It's all parts of American culture. We are not living in a world where we are divided into our own unique country. We live in a global, international, globalized world, where we are able to be influenced by ourselves and where we make the world a better place through influence from other places. So they also give their point about health and danger, which is basically but this point is basically the app for the NFL football stating against increased viewership and increased participation. Viewers, obviously, because it gets the league and it makes the viewers happy because league, and it's better for the player. Economic benefits that come playing football in the United States far outweigh the health negatives. Worrying about health issues from football is a privileged perspective because for many it could turn out to be their only way out of poverty. We outlay on time frame, scope, and magnitude here. We tell you, and finally, in the final point of class here, we say that it will be better for players because they get paid more. Because they get paid more. They say that it's not going to help, but again, they don't understand that if more people are going to be watching football, then more people are going to get paid for it, and then the players are going to make more money, which is going to be better for the players because they're going to make more money, which is what they care about in this round. So let's weigh on the impact of viewers, players, and the league. Viewers are obviously going to be more happy here because they're going to be more because the league is going to be better. There's going to be more people that are going to be watching. There's going to be more people that are going to be watching football because the league is going to be more competitive and it's going to be more exciting. It's better for the players because they are going to be making more money here. It's going to potentially get some players out of poverty, and it's going to help people in general. And it's obviously better for the league, indisputably, because they're going to be getting more money. They're going to have an American audience, an international audience. They're going to be growing their sport across the globe. Thank you. For these reasons, I strongly urge a Gov ballot.
All right. Really great round, everyone. You should
Good round, y'all. That was so much fun.
Yeah, I really like that topic. That was fun.
That was good. Yeah, I don't really know very much about football, but it's still really fun to debate.
I'm glad everyone likes the motions. We'll have all three judges will submit their ballots separately, and then the last person to submit will announce, and then we'll give our RFDs.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ira.
There were some really good. All right, I'll start over. Congratulations on a very good round. This was really enjoyable, and I really got myself caught in your arguments on both sides. So, this was appreciate the effort that went into both sides. Ultimately, I voted for Gov here, and I think all judges voted for Gov here. I'll give you my arguments as to why. To me, this was ultimately an economic discussion, and I think Gov did a good job defining up front that they are representing the economic interests of the NFL, and they're going with the fact that, you know, their argument was, you know, the US is saturated, 100 million people are already watching the Super Bowl. You know, to grow the economic pie for the NFL, we have to go globally. And I think that this was, you know, ultimately to me, that was the opposition was not able to attack that argument. And I think there was a case to be made by the opposition, which I laid out in my comments, that, you know, the opposition could have focused on arguments, you know, that NFL, the opposition was correct in saying, hey, you know, people have know about American football through movies, etc., and there's no interest, and, you know, spending money to promote it globally would be a waste of money, and ultimately have a bad economic outcome for the league. Another argument that I made, is, you know, that I think you guys touched upon, but ultimately did not land for me, is there's real safety issues around football. And I think because of that, actually, there's less people playing football now in the US than they have historically, which would be an argument, hey, we need to invest to preserve the legacy and popularity of football domestically versus going abroad. And you guys talked a lot about social media. To me, one risk when I think about it from an economic standpoint, if I'm in the NFL shoes, you know, kids are spending a lot of time on TikTok. They're watching, you know, it's tough to get their attention for 3 hours. I would be more worried about that, and you know, you worry that the newer generation will not be as interested and invested in football as the older generation, which grew up with nothing else to do on Sunday. So again, it was, to me, this was strictly an economic discussion. I think, you know, the opposition did a really good job, you know, refuting one of the main points that the Gov made, that this will improve outcomes for people, which I thought was a weak argument from the Gov side. You know, opposition, you guys did a really good job kind of refuting that argument. But yeah, that's my summary.
Awesome. Thank you. Shrikant, do you want to go next?
Sure. Yeah, I thought both the teams did an awesome job. You know, I mean, they were really passionate, and it was not an easy decision for me. I was tilting, you know, both sides, you know, throughout the debate, you know. But at the end of the day, I just felt, you know, I agree with whatever the first judge said. You know, I'm just, you know, pretty much repeating what he's saying. It sounded more like an economic decision to me, you know, because I think, you know, I didn't see any particular reason why they, you know, American, whatever the league, couldn't have a broadcast channels and see, you know, and giving it a shot and how the rest of the global world would respond to it, right? You know, just sending some small TikTok videos are not really a good way to gauge into the interest. And that's just more like a monetary, you know, is a fiscal thing, you know, that they have to see whether it's worth even investing there or not. Okay, and beyond that, you know, I don't, you know, I hear the good, strong contentions about propaganda and health race and all that stuff. But again, you know, they also didn't. I thought they were all strong arguments, but I think the Kaur did a reasonable job of refuting them. So that's the reason I chose Kaur. But I'm still not sure if I did the right decision, because they're both are still strong. Yeah. I'm sorry. I had to pick one side, okay?
No, I agree with that. I think that this was a very, very close round. It took me a while to decide. For me, echoing a little bit of what the previous two judges had said, it came down most to a comparison of global football versus specifically increasing viewership in the US. And I don't think Op did enough to tell me why increasing US viewership is important. That you had great points about why like global viewership would suck, but like, okay, then what's the comparative? Why do I care enough about then investing in the US, right? I don't think you had enough terminal impacts about US investment. So your biggest one was your third point, which was like the better condition for American athletes, but you kind of dropped that throughout the round. I didn't think the MO touched upon that well enough. And then I don't think it was brought up in the LOR, but at that point, it hadn't been like enough in the round for me to weigh it fully against things like taking people out of poverty and this idea of general economic benefits and stuff like that. Your interest point was like, it was great, right? But then it's like, okay, if people aren't interested and I spend money, and let's say people do get interested, why is it a bad thing now if people are interested globally in American football, then more Americans being invested? I also did like when the MO said, there is room for us to focus more on Americans, right? Give me more context on that. What should we do for the other 200 million people? What should we do for this next generation? What does that look like? And why does that matter to me more than investing globally, taking global people out of poverty, things like that? I also want to touch upon the safety point because I really like the MG response to this idea of like other sports are just as dangerous. People do it anyway. And I don't think that was responded to, which took safety out of the round for me and just gave it to Gov. Because like, yeah, if people do martial arts and like hurt each other, or if people box, like boxing also has significant health impacts and that's a global sport, then like why is football the line that needs to be drawn? And then the other thing that specifically won it for me for Gov was twofold. I think I really liked the weighing out of the PMR when I got this idea of like, in terms of, I like the actor analysis. That's what it is. Yeah. Because viewers are happier because you get more investment in the league. I would have wanted more, like a little more discussion on that, right? Give me context as to if the NFL is making more money, where is that going? Because Elisandra had a good response in the LO where they were like, okay, yeah, the NFL is getting more money, but that's just going into players' pockets. Tell me why it's specifically making the league better. Give me more context in terms of that. And then the idea of taking people out of poverty, I thought was really good. And I thought that OP did some responses to it, but I think that there was enough examples and enough of like empirically it is true that when you increase sports in a certain area, people who are lower income get another path out of poverty. And so like I don't think I saw enough response to that. But for both teams, I will say one thing to improve on is just I think at times both teams took the worst side of their opponent's argument and responded to it. I think that I would have loved more like, let's take this argument at its best and still outweigh it or still refute it. So like for the poverty point, right? I think OP didn't do enough to tell me why. Let's say both sides take people out of poverty. Why should we focus more on taking Americans out of poverty than taking globally people out of poverty, right? Tell me why it's better to focus on the American economy and give me that directly. For Gov, the third opposition point was this idea of taking Americans out of poverty. Tell me why it's better to outweigh with global. So try to take your opponents at their best argument, not just refute with the easy way out. But sorry, that was really long. Great job to both teams and good luck in your next round, Trinity.
Thank you. Good luck at semis.
Can I ask you a really quick question?
Yeah.
So just for future reference, did you guys consider the POOs in the round? Because I'm wondering if like what was legal and what was not.
So the Cuba POO I did think was a valid POO because I think Elisandra brought that up in their LO, and then like Cuba was not discussed the rest of the round and then was brought up again. But the propaganda stuff was of contention throughout, and there was enough new stuff brought up in the op block that I figured that was fine, but that didn't really factor into my decision. Like that didn't super matter.
Okay, that makes sense. Thank you.
Yeah.
Really fun.
Yeah, no, we really enjoyed it. Good
Thank
luck.
you.
Have a good day.
Bye.